And so many people, when arguing theology or arguing the existence of God based on theology, they kind of neglect this point that, theologically speaking, God and his character is not black and white. What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to be talking about theology and understanding theology. On this channel, I haven't really talked much about theology specifically because I've talked more so in regards to like the philosophy of religion. But today I'm actually going to talk about theology because last night was the first night, and I don't even know how long, that I decided to pick up this little guy and read it for reasons that I have. I'll probably talk about that in a later video. So I picked up this book and I started reading John. John, just because out of the four Gospels, John is my favorite because there's a lot more supernatural encounters and stories in the book of John than the other three books, which some of you would be like, well, that makes these books not valid because it's different from the other three Gospels, and that's another discussion, that's another argument. Like I said, just talking theology for today, and basically my Monday night thought process, which I'm really letting you into my everyday life in this video. So, picked up the Bible and read John 1, just started reading John 1, and read John 1:18, which says, "No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten God who is in the bosom of the Father, he has explained him." And so I read this, and it says, no one has seen God at any time. But if you look in the book of Matthew, it says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And if you look at the end of John, it says that Jesus is praying a prayer to the Father at the Last Supper, and he is just really, it's kind of an intimate moment with Jesus, just like in front of 12 people, having a one-to-one conversation with God, his Father, and him. And he says, "It is my desire that they see me in my glory." And so then if you go in the Old Testament, then you see encounters where people has seen God or Jesus or whatever. And then, obviously Jesus came to earth in the biblical context, and so Jesus says, "I am the Father. If you've seen me, then you've seen the Father." So people have seen God. So what is he talking about right here? Yeah, I read that verse, and all of those thoughts happened in like a split second. So obviously, this is like a given. Like, the Bible contradicts itself a lot, but I'm going to address why, because when I read that verse, it says, no one has seen God at any time. So if any of you read the Bible or know any theological context, that God is 3 in 1 Trinity. So then I started thinking that, okay, maybe this verse means, and this is just kind of like a theological theory, I guess, that I have. Maybe what this verse is talking about is no one has seen God as the Trinity at one time. We've seen, or people claim to have seen Jesus, maybe even the Father, and experience the Holy Spirit, but to see all three of them at once, not so sure about that, and maybe that's what this verse is talking about. So why does it say, so that's just one thought, but then why does it say no one has seen God, but yet, Jesus came to earth, and, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And I could mention a ton of other verses that it's like, no, we can see God. And then this got me thinking about the theological concept that a lot of people miss when addressing God or arguing, God, can I even talk? When arguing the existence of God, they bring up things like, let's say, the Epicurean paradox. Epicurean? Whatever. The omnipotence paradox, where it says, can God create a rock so heavy that even he can't lift? And I say to that, why would God need to make the rock? Because if I understand this at all, then theologically speaking, God in the New Testament is about relationship, and there's a lot of places that points to that. There's a lot of places in Paul's letters, there's a lot of places in the Gospels, there's a lot of places that point to a truth that is not black and white. And so many people, when arguing theology or arguing the existence of God based on theology, they kind of neglect this point that theologically speaking, God and his character is not black and white. It's very gray. And I say gray because I think, this is what I've always said, gray is the color of love. And so I would say gray is the color of relationship. So if you're talking, like, let's say with the omnipotence paradox, that why would God create a rock? No. So the omnipotence paradox saying, can God create a rock that even he can't lift? I would say he would if he was in relationship with somebody that needed that. Or, and obviously you guys know where I'm at spiritually, so I'm just literally talking about theology and what I've seen and what I'm seeing, what I'm reading, and just piecing things together that I've learned and I've seen my entire life. And so when I understand these things, especially my dad being a pastor and me going to ministry school and all these things, that it's like I understand and I see that when people address these philosophical arguments based off theology, I'm like, you're not taking into account what theology says about the character of God, because you're just wanting a black and white answer of, well, here's a paradox, because if God is all-powerful, then he could create a rock that even he can't lift, which means he's not all-powerful, and then it gets into this paradox where I'm saying that why would God need to make a rock? Because if God is a person, if God is, not just a theological concept or not just something that we look at, and where this gets into, if you're a deist or if you're an agnostic, then you can say that, well, God might exist, but we don't understand him and we will never understand him or anything like that. But I would say that theologically speaking, or I should say biblically speaking, that in Christianity, that God is a God of relationship. He's not a God of just strict black and white. Even when you look at the Ten Commandments, he says in the New Testament that they can all be wrapped up into love your neighbor as yourself, and love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, into two commandments, basically. Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so when you look even further, there's so much context that people are missing in philosophical arguments, that they're not taking into account the theological character of God, that it's about relationship. So could God create a rock that he can't lift? Yes, but you have to ask the question, why? You have to ask the question, like, is he in relationship with somebody that needs him to create a rock that he can't lift? In that situation, if that situation were ever a thing, then I would say yes. And I mean, it's kind of, I just had this thought now, but it's kind of happened to where, like God sent the flood on Noah, and then he said, I will never do that again, and here's my promise to you. If you think about that in a way, it's like he made that promise and he said that he would never do it again. So he's not going to remove that promise because it's a promise that he made. So if you think about that, it's kind of the same as creating a rock he can't lift, but it's, in this case, it's like creating a promise that he can't break, or he won't break, because it's based on relationship with somebody. It's not based on just a philosophical, paradoxical thought. It's this relationship between somebody that says, I'm not going to destroy humankind again. Or that's a whole separate topic. Won't get into that here. So I think I am beating a dead horse with that. But this thought in regarding to truth, not so much being black and white, but being gray in regards to theology and relationship, specifically relationship, that I'm actually studying right now, and I'm going to be doing a series on truth. What is objective, wow, I can't even talk today. About what is objective truth, about what is subjective truth, and how we can use these on our journey to further find what is objective truth. And I mean, I'm going to be talking about, pragmatism, Aristotle's ideas, the correspondence theory. But something that I've noticed in the studying that I've done on all of these objectives of truth is that people go so far, like down a rabbit hole when searching for truth, that they, oh man, what's this? It starts with a T, this philosopher's name. You know what? I have it on my laptop, so why not just open it up and look at his name. Dude, why do I... Oh my god. I know it's Tarski. Watch, I'm not even there. It's Tarski. Tarski, yeah. I don't know why I couldn't just... whatever. So, Tarski has these... like, he's literally formed a mathematical equation for sentences of how we can find truth. And I think that sort of thing is just unnecessary, because why I love pragmatism so much is pragmatism says, okay, like just because you found something that's not a paradox and that makes sense doesn't mean it's actually useful. And so if it makes sense, if it's coherent and it's useful, then it can be said to be true. But obviously there's holes in that philosophy as well. But what I do like about pragmatism is that William James, who, made pragmatism with Charles Peirce, Charles Peirce, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. They both said that questioning should be done in groups of people to find the truth. And I like pragmatism because they equate the findings of what truth should be, even philosophically, finding what truth should be, equating it to how the scientific method works with experimentation. So should pragmatism and philosophy and thought process be to find what is truth through experimentation, through doing. And this should be done in groups of people, which I'm going to talk more about that in this series of truth that I'm going to be doing. But it just goes to show even more that I think with that process of thinking, with that process of searching out truth, doing it in groups of people, which is why I make these YouTube videos, which I love hearing all of your comments of what you think, because I feel like it's done in a group of people. So even if I feel like I have something right, that in a group of people it might be actually that's not so, that's not so much black and white, that's actually a gray area, and where there, that might be true here, that's not true here. And so I do think there is objective truth, and now I'm just confusing myself and probably all of you all now. Or maybe you guys are tracking and I'm confusing myself. Whatever. So that's kind of a small rabbit trail down the philosophy of truth. But my point in this video that I'm making is, so by the way, everything that I just shared was my Monday night thoughts. So oh man, I spent too much time alone. These are the thought bubble experiments that happen to me every single night when I just sit and think. It's glorious and chaotic at the same time, and I like it. Welcome to my world. But the point of this video, and the point I am making with this video, is that when I read the Bible last night, when I read that verse and started to go down that rabbit trail and think about all of those thoughts, that in regard to theology, in regard to especially philosophical arguments against God using the character of God, we need to understand that in order to argue those arguments correctly, that we have to understand the character of God theologically, which the character of God, as I understand it theologically, is not, it's not something that it's like God is, I don't know, I feel like from the philosophical arguments that I've seen, it's almost like God is looked at as just a robot who only commands and demands things, and the truth is strictly black and white. Where if you read the Bible and if you read the context of the character of God and who God says He is in New Testament, but also in Old, even though there's a lot of, I'm not getting into that in this video, that He is a God of relationship. And so if you look at a lot of these philosophical arguments against God, using God's character to say it's paradoxical, it doesn't work, they fall apart when you start to look at those arguments in regard to relationship. That's what I've seen. Now, having said all that I just said, I am interested to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that those arguments still stand even when looking at God as a God of relationship, and that truth inside a relationship can be black and white depending on the situation at hand, depending on just everything depending on? I mean, the Bible points to this. This is just common sense in regard to relationship. At some times things are necessary, at other times things are not. Sometimes things can be true and sometimes things can't be in regards to relationship. Now, I do think outside of relationship there is objective truth. There is black and white. So I'm saying that we can't just strictly look at truth outside of relationship and inside of relationship as something that's black and white. I think truth can be seen outside of relationship as black and white and as objective truth, but inside of relationship, truth can be gray, and there can be moments of truth here. And what is true? Everything that I just said. I'm not going to keep on repeating myself. Hopefully you all are understanding what I'm saying. But do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is it making sense? I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please leave a comment saying, wow, this made so much sense, or wow, you're completely wrong and out of your mind. Believe it or not, I've gotten those comments. Yeah, they always make me super happy. Alright, so that's it for today, and hopefully your brain has been awakened, and I know mine is. This isn't my coffee cup, as you can tell. This isn't even real coffee. I'm drinking decaf. Help me. Anyway, if you liked the video, like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you misfits in the next one. Peace! I got that summer love. Oh,